I married my love rival's blind date partner on a whim. At my birthday party, my boyfriend brought along his childhood sweetheart. Our friends joked about setting his childhood sweetheart up with someone new, and suddenly my boyfriend exploded. Sarah, have you had enough? Maura isn't like you, she's not that kind of woman. With that, he stormed off with her, completely forgetting that I was his actual girlfriend. Later, he came back, full of regret, apologizing and proposing to me with deep affection. I simply raised my hand, flashing the marriage certificate. Sorry, but I took a liking to your childhood sweetheart's blind date partner. On my 25th birthday, my best friend Emily threw me a grand celebration. I couldn't help but laugh at how over the top it was. She winked. Sarah, this wasn't my idea. Your dear Eric Demers asked me to set this up for you. I was a little surprised. After 3 years together, this was the first time Eric had gone out of his way for my birthday. In the past, he would just hand me a bouquet of roses and a lipstick, case closed. Seeing my confusion, Emily leaned in, her voice dripping with mystery. 2 days ago, I saw him picking out a ring at a jewelry store. Maybe he's planning to propose tonight. A proposal? So suddenly? The mere thought made my heart race. But as the party filled with friends and laughter, there was still no sign of Eric. Everyone tried to comfort me. Brother Demers is a busy man. It's understandable if he's running late. Exactly. He's one of the stars tonight. You know how main characters always make a dramatic entrance. Finally, after another long wait, Eric rushed in. And he wasn't alone. A stunning woman followed close behind him, dressed in an elegant emerald green dress, her makeup impeccable, radiating confidence and charm. The room fell silent. The once lively atmosphere turned painfully awkward. When Eric spotted me, his expression stiffened as if my presence here was the biggest surprise of the night. Sarah, what are you doing here? My birthday party. Where else would I be? Confused, I took a step toward him only for him to immediately pull the woman behind him, shielding her like a mother hen guarding her chick. His protectiveness was almost comical. I raised an eyebrow. TSK, Eric Demers, you found a new girlfriend and didn't even bother to send me a memo? Eric's face darkened instantly. What nonsense are you talking about? Maura is just a friend. We grew up together. She just got back from overseas and I picked her up from the airport. Ah. So I had misunderstood. He hadn't forgotten my birthday. This whole event was actually a welcome party for his precious Maura. I kept my face neutral, though a dull ache settled in my chest. Emily, on the other hand, lost her temper instantly. Eric Demers, I only agreed to organize this because I thought it was for Sarah's birthday. Turns out it's a welcome bash for your childhood sweetheart instead? She scoffed. You made your girlfriend's best friend throw a party so you and your little Maura could have fun together. Even a dog with half a brain wouldn't do something this stupid. Seriously, I never realized you were the type to act like a toad dressing up as a prince, ugly and shameless. I sipped my wine and clapped. Ah, Emily. All these years and her temper was still the same. I thought her growing out her hair would make her more ladylike, but nope. I like that about her. Eric was utterly humiliated, his face red with anger. Behind him, Maura's expression also shifted, but she quickly forced a graceful smile, turning her gaze to me. Sarah Wilson, right? I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm Maura Taylor and Eric and I are just friends. Friends? Yeah, right. Who calls their just a friend by their full name with such affection? But hey, props to her for keeping her composure after getting dragged through the mud. She was a tough one. Eric finally regained some sense, turning to me with a serious look. Sarah, you really got it wrong. Maura is like a sister to me. I just wanted to introduce her to everyone. At that moment, I caught a flicker of something in Maura's eyes. Her gaze lingered on Eric's face for a beat too long, dimming slightly. I lifted my glass and smirked. Oh, so you remember exactly when your sister returns to the country, but my birthday? That completely slipped your mind? Eric froze, his expression turning awkward. Married my love rival's blind date partner on a whim. Eric's eyes flickered. How could I forget your birthday? I just accidentally left your gift at home. Enough talking. I'll give it to you later. Let's just cut the cake first. Without waiting for my response, he pulled me down into a seat beside him. Maura Taylor ever so conveniently sat right next to him as well. Then, as if by accident, she tucked her hair behind her ear, flashing a smug smile. A brand new diamond ring gleamed on her finger. My heart sank. Oh, so that proposal ring had already been given away, huh? Emily leaned in, whispering hesitantly, I only caught a glimpse of it that day. I'm not sure if it's the one he bought. My gut twisted in suspicion. Well, there was an easy way to find out. I reached out and grabbed Maura Taylor's hand. Miss Taylor, what a beautiful ring. It suits you so well. Where did you get it? I have no idea where it's from. It was a gift, she replied, throwing Eric a meaningful glance. Eric smirked. Well, whoever got it has great taste. The two of them exchanged a smile, flirtatious, intimate, like a couple caught in a private joke. It was all too obvious. A tremor ran through me as I suddenly realized I was the outsider here. Emily, sensing my fingers shaking, gritted her teeth and squeezed my hand in comfort. Then, in true Emily fashion, she turned to Maura with a sly smile. Miss Taylor, you just returned to the country, and you've already got a suitor? Maura giggled shyly. Oh no, nothing like that. Just a friend. Oh, another just a friend. So, Miss Taylor, you're still single? Yes. Well then, let me introduce you to someone. He's rich, gullible, and just perfect for you. I'll call him right now and set up a blind date on the spot. Watching Eric and Maura's faces turn greener by the second, Emily's excitement only grew. And of course, she actually pulled out her phone. Hey, old Green. Aunt Lynn said you're back in town, right? Great. We're all here for Sarah's birthday. Come over, I've got the perfect match for you. She hung up and turned to Maura with a smile. Don't worry, Miss Taylor. He'll be here soon. Old Green may be a little older, but... At that moment, an image of an elderly, flashy billionaire popped into my mind and I shuddered. Emily, as always, was a walking disaster waiting to happen. Maura, too, visibly trembled, her wide eyes darting to Eric in distress. Eric, that was Eric's breaking point. He slammed the table and shot to his feet, pointing at me in fury. Sarah, have you had enough? Maura isn't like you, she's not some random shameless woman. Eric and I first met at a bar. That night, I was sipping my drink at the counter when he suddenly stormed in, grabbed my wrist, and pulled me outside. His face was flushed, clearly a little drunk. A girl drinking alone in a bar, is that safe? Do you even think? Come on, I'll take you home. I had just opened my mouth to explain that I wasn't alone, but before I could get a word in, he had already shoved me into a taxi. He spent the entire ride lecturing me nonstop. To be honest, I didn't hear a word he said. I was too busy staring at his handsome face, completely enamored. Back then, he seemed so put together, so polite and gentle, even drunk. I fell for him in an instant. With my relentless pursuit, we got together quickly. Later, he even helped me find a job under him. I figured, why not? It would be a fun experience. Never once did I tell him that the bar where we met was mine. And now in his eyes, I was nothing more than a random woman. There was nothing left to explain. I looked at the two of them, their gazes locked in unspoken tension. Then, without hesitation, I stood up on the table, grabbed a bottle of red wine, and poured it over Eric's head. Eric, we're done. Maura gasped, rushing to wipe him down as she scolded me righteously. Sarah, you're too much. Eric was just standing up for me. If you have a problem, take it out on me, not him. Eric gazed at her with deep affection. I hummed an acknowledgement, popped open another bottle, and doused her as well. Well, since you insisted, I'm just being considerate. Happy now? Sarah, are you insane? Eric shouted, pulling Maura protectively into his arms. I tilted my head innocently. What? She did tell me to take it out on her. Honestly, I was more heartbroken over wasting my wine. Eric glared at me, his voice laced with warning. Sarah, you'll come crawling back to me. I'll be waiting. I scoffed. Dream on. His face darkened instantly. Grabbing Maura, he stormed off in rage. Like, I didn't know what he was thinking. He wanted to use our workplace to control me. Too bad for him, I didn't need that paycheck. Tomorrow I'd be turning in my resignation. The party continued. The breakup had been satisfying, but after 3 years together, a small ache still lingered in my chest. So naturally, I drowned it in alcohol. Somewhere between the blurry edges of my vision, a tall, broad-shouldered man appeared. Damn, Emily really went all out. She even got me a male model? Grinning, I yanked him over, running my hand up his arm into his shoulder. But just as I reached his chest, he grabbed my wrist. Annoyed, I pouted. Come on, be good. I'll pay you. Just let me touch. I'm older than you, he said flatly. Oh. Then, big brother, can I touch? He sighed. Well, that'll cost extra. Fine, name your price. He let go of my wrist. Excited, I immediately placed my hands on his chest. Nice. Firm. But not enough. I started unbuttoning his shirt. That's when he pinned my hands down, his voice dropping low. All right, that's enough. What? That was it. Even after paying extra? I suddenly felt deeply, profoundly miserable. Even worse than the breakup. Tears welled up in my eyes. No, not enough. I wailed, sobbing. I lost my boyfriend, I lost my proposal, and now I can't even buy a decent chest to grope? The man chuckled. So you're worried about not getting married, huh? That struck a nerve. I shot him a glare, full of righteous fury. Me? Not getting married? I could get married any time I want. The next morning, I stared at the marriage certificate in my hand, utterly dumbfounded. How the hell did I actually get married? Married my love rival's blind date partner on a whim. The name Michael Green on the marriage certificate looked oddly familiar, but I couldn't quite place it. Judging by the age, 5 years older than me, I probably didn't know him. I racked my brain, mumbling to myself, could it be... I've booked him before? Booked what? A male model. I blurted out the answer without thinking. As soon as the words left my mouth, I looked up only to see a half-naked man standing in front of me, wrapped in a bath towel. Wow. So my instincts last night were correct. With a body like that, who wouldn't want to pay to cop a feel? Unfortunately, it seemed I had gone a little overboard, and accidentally married him. Just great. As I was regretting my life choices, he narrowed his eyes at me. Just how many times have you booked one? I forced an awkward smile. Yeah, like I could answer that honestly. Time to change the subject. So, what exactly happened last night? How did we end up married? He paused for a moment, looking slightly surprised. You don't remember? I blinked. Remember what? He sighed, exasperated. You were determined to prove you could get married any time you wanted. You dragged me back to your house, grabbed your household registration book, and waited outside the civil affairs office before dawn. And well, here we are. Then he smirked. Sarah Wilson, you really haven't changed a bit. I was about to ask what he meant, but before I could, a wave of fragmented memories suddenly hit me. I had practically pinned someone down in front of the marriage bureau. Every time he tried to leave, I cried until he gave up. And the moment we got our marriage certificate, I finally smiled, content, and then promptly passed out. My soul left my body. For a second, I had thought this was a classic case of a male model scamming his way into marriage. But no. I was the one who had forcibly trapped him into marrying me. I felt a deep sense of shame and didn't dare look up at him. Well, I was drunk last night, but no matter what, I was in the wrong. I apologize. But marriage is a serious matter. We can't treat it like a joke. Why don't we go get a divorce later? The room went dead silent. I looked up to see him fully dressed now. A tailored black suit hugged his broad shoulders and long legs perfectly. His slender fingers adjusted his tie with practiced ease, exuding the sharp professional aura of a top-tier businessman. And with that cold, refined face of his, he was dangerously distracting. I don't have time today. We'll talk about the divorce another day. With that, he turned and walked out, leaving nothing behind except the contacts saved on my phone, marked Hubby. My face instantly turned red. This guy had some nerve. Remembering that I still had to quit my job today, I quickly packed my things. Just as I was about to leave, my gaze landed on the bright red marriage certificate lying on the bed. After hesitating for a second, I stuffed it into my bag. By the time I arrived at the office, it was already 2 p.m. One of my colleagues immediately dragged me into the break room. "Sara? Where have you been? Director Demers was looking for you this morning. He did not look happy." "Really? Well, that makes me happy." I smiled, leisurely making myself a cup of coffee. Even though Eric and I had never made our relationship official at work, anyone with eyes could tell there was something between us. People even secretly shipped us as a couple. So, seeing my relaxed attitude, my colleague got anxious. "Director Demers brought someone in today. He immediately appointed her as the new team leader, basically replacing you. Did you guys have a fight?" Before she could finish, the so-called new team leader walked in. The moment she saw me, her eyes flashed with disdain. "Sara Wilson, not only are you late without reason, but you still have time to drink coffee and chat? Are you trying to give up your attendance bonus this month?" I wasn't even surprised when I saw Maura Taylor standing there. But I was curious, did Eric just hand out leadership positions to whoever he was infatuated with? He decided who got promoted. This company seemed incredibly unprofessional. No wonder it felt like it was destined to collapse. Seeing me ignore her, Maura's face twisted with frustration. "Sara Wilson, I won't hold a grudge over what happened yesterday. As long as you apologize to me in public, you can keep your attendance bonus." I sighed dramatically. But I don't want to apologize. And I don't care about the bonus." Seriously, I was about to quit. Did she think I was desperate for that measly $200? A worker's dignity is still dignity. No way was I trading mine for a single meal's worth of money. Maura's face turned red, then white. "You just wait," she snapped, stomping off in her heels. I rolled my eyes. Honestly, she and Eric were a perfect match. They both loved making people wait. Did they not realize that time was precious? If I wasted my life waiting for these idiots, I'd lose years. I sat at my desk, typing out my resignation letter. Just as I clicked print, Eric walked in. One look at his face and I knew he was here to stir up trouble for me on Maura's behalf. As expected, he slammed a thick stack of documents onto my desk. "Sara Wilson, these reports are urgent. I need them by the end of the day." I glanced at the pile, then looked up at him. "Director Demers, do you see any words written on my face?" He frowned. "No." I smiled. "Then why are you treating me like an idiot? Anyone can see there's no way to finish these by the end of the day." Was he really pulling this kind of petty revenge over his childhood sweetheart? How had I never noticed before Eric Demers was this childish? I really had been blind. Eric's expression darkened. "Then work overtime. I expect them on my desk first thing tomorrow morning." "Oh, I just remembered I signed a contract for an 8-hour workday. Is Director Demers planning to break labor laws and force me to work overtime?" I fired back instantly. Eric clenched his jaw, his face darkening even further. At that moment, Maura walked in, wrapping her arm around his. With a sickeningly sweet smile, she looked at me and said, "Eric would never break labor laws. But for the company's sake, as a former team leader, wouldn't it be great if you voluntarily stayed late?" I smirked. "Oh, you say that so easily. Why don't you do it?" I raised an eyebrow. "And since you brought it up, former team leader. If I'm no longer the leader, then why should I be handling these reports?" Maura froze. Because, of course, those files were team leader responsibilities. Eric was about to say something in Maura's defense when I grabbed the freshly printed resignation letter and slammed it into his face. "No need for words. I'm here for one thing only, I quit." "I don't agree." Eric's expression was full of righteous indignation, as if he was doing this for my own good. "Sara Wilson, do you even understand reality? Without this job, how are you going to survive? Are you planning to go back to your old ways, wasting your life drinking in bars every day?" The room instantly filled with murmurs. Wow, I never knew Sara Wilson was that kind of person. So she's been living off Director Demir's all this time? And now she's acting all ungrateful? Maybe she's just jealous of team leader Taylor and throwing a tantrum. I hadn't expected Eric to be this shameless. From the moment we met, I had never taken a dime from him. Yet he was making it sound like I couldn't survive without him. I took a deep breath. Eric, that is a resignation notice, not a request. And as of yesterday, we broke up. You don't get to control me anymore. Eric looked at me like I was a child throwing a tantrum. Sara, you were just angry when you said that. I didn't take it seriously. Stop making a fuss. I actually laughed at that. Even now, he thought I was just being unreasonable. I stared at him for a long moment, then firmly shook my head. Eric, I told you. We are done. For the first time, I saw a flicker of panic in his eyes. Frustrated and confused, he said, Why? I already told you Maura and I are just friends. After everything you did to me, I still didn't blame you. Today, I just wanted you to swallow your pride a little. Even now, he refused to admit his feelings for Maura. Even now, he didn't think he had done anything wrong. And somehow, I was still the one being painted as unreasonable. My voice turned ice cold. Eric Demirs, do you even believe yourself? What kind of friend makes you forget your girlfriend's birthday just to pick her up from the airport? What kind of friend makes you give her a ring with significant meaning? At the mention of the ring, his expression flickered. He looked guilty. That ring wasn't. I immediately cut him off. Don't even try. You're not going to say Maura's ring wasn't from you, are you? After a moment of silence, he finally closed his eyes and admitted, Yes, I bought that ring. The moment those words left his mouth, the entire office exploded. I knew it. Team leader Wilson wasn't the problem here. This is some next-level scumbag behavior. Bringing your new girl to humiliate your ex the day after breaking up? If I were Sara Wilson, I'd have left too. Maura's face twisted in anger and she stormed out. Eric stood there, his gaze lowered, deep in thought. I had no interest in guessing what was going through his head. If you admit it, then there's nothing more to say. I packed up my things and turned to leave. But before I could take a step, Eric grabbed my wrist tightly. Sara, don't be like this. Just hear me out. That ring, he said urgently, I bought it for you as a birthday gift. Maura saw it, so I just let her try it on. I rolled my eyes so hard I nearly sprained something. Try it on? For how long, exactly? Eric Demirs let go. I struggled to break free, but his grip only tightened. Sara, please, just listen to. She told you to let go. Didn't you hear her? A familiar voice cut in. Before Eric could react, he was shoved backward, and I was pulled into someone's embrace. I looked up, straight into Michael Green's face. You? Michael held me even tighter, the corner of his lips curving up. Wifey, I came to take you home for dinner. I froze. What did he just say, wifey? In broad daylight in front of all these people? Oh no. My reputation, my dignity, ruined in an instant. Now everyone would think I was some two-timing vixen playing two men at once. But then I thought about it again. These people's opinions didn't matter to me. And honestly, wasn't this just a compliment? Actually, it felt kind of nice. I accepted it almost instantly. Eric Demirs was clearly not taking this well. His face darkened, eyes filled with fury. What did you just say? Sara is my girlfriend. Who the hell do you think you are? Michael Green, completely unfazed, replied calmly, before yesterday, yes, she was your girlfriend. But starting today, she's my wife. Then he turned to me. Right, wifey? Instinctively, I nodded. Not a single line, a statement. Eric's expression twisted in disbelief, his eyes brimming with hurt. Sara Wilson, I never thought you were this kind of person. That pissed me off. Oh. So you get to two-time me, but I'm not allowed to move on instantly? Eric Demirs, get this straight, we broke up yesterday. Who I choose to be with is none of your business. Now go back to your little childhood sweetheart and continue your ambiguously platonic romance. With that, I decisively hooked my arm around Michael's and walked away, ignoring the stunned looks from the onlookers. As soon as we got downstairs, I let go of him. Thanks for that, I said awkwardly. But how did you even find me? Michael silently reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. Of course. The simplest method. Without hesitation, I snatched the card from his hand, ripped it to pieces, and tossed it into the trash can, along with all my pent-up frustration from these past few days. Instantly, I felt lighter. Only then did I remember Michael Green was still standing there. Turning to him, I asked, "So, what do you want? Do you have time to get divorced now?" Michael, having patiently watched my whole dramatic display, let out a soft chuckle. "No time for that yet. And when I said I came to take you home for dinner, I meant it literally." "What?" An hour later, the car pulled up in front of the Wilson family estate. I was stunned. So when he said home for dinner, he actually meant my home. What the hell? How do you even know where my parents live? Michael smiled lazily. Take a guess. I stepped inside with my guard up, but before I could process anything, my mom came striding out, beaming with joy. And instead of looking at me, she went straight for Michael. "Michael, it's been years and you're just getting more handsome. I made all your favorite dishes. Come in, come in." I blinked in pure confusion. What the hell was going on? My mom knows him? And they seem close? I hurried over to her. "Mom, wait, you know him? Who is he?" Only then did my mom finally notice me. "Oh, you little brat. Haven't come home in 6 months and now you're suddenly back?" I glanced at Michael, who was already walking ahead, and decided not to tell the truth. Feeling a little guilty, I muttered, Well, can I come home just to have dinner?" Then I clung to her arm and pouted. "Mom, just tell me already. Who is he?" She shot me a look of exasperation. "Michael Green, the grandson of Grandpa Green, the one who came every New Year's to visit. He used to take you around when you were little. How could you forget?" I was utterly blank. But seeing the expectation in my mom's eyes, I nodded as if I understood. As soon as we stepped inside, my dad wasted no time dragging Michael over to the chess table. My mom immediately yelled, "Dinner first." No chess. Dad stiffened and redirected him straight to the dining table. At dinner, everyone was talking animatedly. Everyone except me. I was sitting there numbly eating plain rice, completely zoning out. Michael, noticing, casually placed a piece of pork ribs onto my plate. I nearly choked. For a second, I thought he was going to call me wifey again in front of my family. Holding my bowl protectively, I narrowed my eyes at him. "What are you trying to do?" My mom frowned. "What's with you? Your uncle is just giving you food." I froze. Uncle? For the first time in my life, pure terror flooded through me. Did I just marry my uncle? Mom nodded. Of course. That's the proper way to address him according to seniority. I turned pale. Then Michael finally spoke, lazily shrugging, that was just some nonsense Grandpa made up when he was younger. It doesn't count. Going by age, Sara can just call me Big Brother. Dad immediately agreed. Exactly. If Sara calls him uncle, that would make me Michael's big brother. I'm way too old for that. No way. My soul resurrected. I turned to Michael only to catch him smirking. He had been enjoying this whole situation. I clenched my teeth. This bastard. Then Mom sighed dramatically. This girl. Still so immature. I really wonder when she finds a good man to marry. I completely ignored her, letting the words go in one ear and out the other. Ah, yes. The classic marriage talk. When I was dating Eric, I never told them. And now? I definitely wasn't about to tell them. Seeing no reaction from me, Mom turned to Michael instead. What about you, Michael? Got a girlfriend yet? Michael glanced at me, then smiled. No girlfriend. But I'm married. My hair stood on end. Mom, ever the expert at asking the worst possible questions, gasped. Really? Who's the lucky? Before she could finish, I slapped a hand over her mouth. Mom! Enough. Let the man eat in peace. If this conversation went any further, I'd have to dig a hole and live in it. Mom gave me another glare but didn't push it. Just when I thought the worst was over, she suddenly said, Michael, it's late. Why don't you stay over tonight? I clutched my chest, horrified. Mom, 1, hit KO. That night, Michael Green was staying in the room next to mine. I texted him, You're leaving first thing in the morning. He replied with a see. A moment later, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, Michael stood there, his clear eyes locked onto me. Sara, you really want me to leave? I nodded. If possible, I'd prefer he left right now. He raised an eyebrow. But Sara hasn't paid me yet. I frowned. Paid for what? He sighed. You said you'd pay extra. You touched and now you're trying to back out? Damn. The memories I had tried so hard to erase suddenly ambushed me. It was when I was drunk, mistaking him for a male model. My face heated up as I glared at him. Fine. QR code. He lifted his phone. I scanned it only for it to prompt add as a WeChat friend. I squinted at him. What's this? I only accept WeChat transfers. After struggling with it for a while, I finally transferred the money. Just as I thought I was free of him, Michael suddenly stepped inside and started unbuttoning his shirt. I was shocked. What are you doing? Acting completely natural, he took off his top and sprawled onto my bed. Sara, last time you barely got to touch. But now that you've paid, I'll let you touch all you want. I stood there, utterly speechless. But faced with such an enticing sight, I swallowed. 3 seconds of inner turmoil. He came to me on his own. I already paid. Not taking advantage would be a waste. My hands moved before my brain could stop them. And in that moment, only one thought filled my mind. Damn, that was money well spent. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my mom's voice approaching. I turned my head. Michael Green was right next to me, still asleep. My eyes widened in horror. System error. Brain shut down. Mom's footsteps got closer. Pure survival instinct kicked in. I shoved Michael under the blanket. A second later, the door swung open. Sara, get up. We have guests over. Don't sleep all day. Under the covers, Michael pulled me into his arms. I stiffened, forcing a smile. Okay. I'm getting up. The moment my mom left, I kicked Michael hard. Michael, what the hell was that? He yawned. Call me hubby. Then he tilted his head up, leaning in for a kiss. I pushed his face away. I paid, you agreed. It was just fun, don't take it seriously. Michael looked at me like a heartbroken puppy. I ignored him. It was just touching. Don't act like I used you and dumped you. He chuckled, got up, and got dressed with complete ease. As he headed for the door, I warned him, don't cause trouble in front of my parents. He didn't reply, just walked out. At breakfast, I stayed on edge, half expecting him to pull something. But to my relief, he behaved. After the meal, he drove me back to my apartment. Just as I was about to get out, he suddenly grabbed my wrist. Sara, I'm serious. I like you. Think about it. I froze. That was way too direct. For once, I didn't know what to say. He smiled again. No rush. Take your time. Then, after a moment of thought, his expression turned solemn. If in the end you still don't want to be with me, then we'll get divorced. I numbly nodded, still processing everything. But one question stuck in my mind. Why would he like me? The moment I stepped into my apartment, Emily tackled me. Sara, you disappeared for 2 days. Where the hell were you? Startled, I quickly launched a counterattack, tickling her until she collapsed onto the couch, laughing uncontrollably. After a while, she caught her breath and glared at me. All right, spill it. Where the hell did you go? I totally didn't feel guilty and waved a hand dismissively. What do you mean? I just went back to my hometown. Hey, do I look like I believe that? Before I could react, she grabbed my bag and dumped everything out onto the couch. And there it was. A bright red marriage certificate. I lunged to grab it, but she snatched it first. The moment she opened it, her eyes went wide in shock. Sarah Wilson, you disappeared for 2 days and came back married? She squinted at the name. And to Old Green? Old Green? Michael Green wasn't that old, was he? Emily looked at the certificate, then at me. She shook her head, looking completely baffled. I can't believe this. You didn't end up with Taylor, but you married Green instead? Taylor? Did she mean Maura Taylor? Then, suddenly, a realization hit me like lightning. The Old Green Emily was talking about before was Michael Green? I had thought she was talking about some old rich guy. Emily, looking extremely pleased with herself, folded her arms. I was just calling him over to stir the pot, make Eric and Taylor look bad. Who knew I'd end up playing matchmaker for you instead? She had the most smug expression ever. I gritted my teeth in frustration and tackled her onto the couch again. Emily, you're the reason I got drunk and ended up in a flash marriage. Talk. Where were you that night while I was getting into trouble? Emily suddenly turned shy, looking like a love-struck fool. Oh, there was this adorable little puppy of a guy. He looked so innocent and pure, and I just couldn't help myself. Women. Your name is Simp? After that night, I became deeply convinced that alcohol was not a good thing. I left the bar that Emily and I co-owned entirely under her management, while I focused on setting up a new business, a cafe. Michael Green, for some reason, showed up every day like he was completing some kind of daily check and mission. Even Emily couldn't help but say, you might as well just accept him. He's the CEO of Green Group, handsome and rich. Then she smirked. Besides, weren't you always begging him to be your hubby when we were kids? Now that you've got what you wanted, you're suddenly not interested? I perked up. When did that happen? Emily gasped. You forgot? Back when we visited Grandpa Green's house for New Year's, he told Michael to take us out to play. You insisted on playing house and made him be your hubby. You seriously don't remember? I had completely forgotten. And then I remembered. The painful memories came flooding back. Both times I met Michael Green, I had shamelessly clung to him, demanding that he be my hubby. No wonder he said I hadn't changed. But I really wasn't in the mood for romance right now. I just wanted to focus on my cafe. While I was completely absorbed in my work, I unexpectedly ran into Eric Demers again. He looked thinner, visibly haggard. When he saw me, he hesitated. Sarah, how have you been? I didn't answer. His gaze shifted to my under-construction cafe, eyes clouded with complex emotions. Did he open this for you? I almost laughed. Why did this man always assume the worst? I scoffed. Eric, do you really think women can only survive by relying on men? He frowned, but I could tell he still doubted me. If it's not him, then where did you get the money? I barely held back the urge to throw him out of my cafe. Taking a deep breath, I said, have you ever considered that before I met you, if I had no income, how did I afford to stay in a bar all the time? His brows furrowed even deeper. I continued, did it ever occur to you that maybe, just maybe, the bar belonged to me? Eric's eyes widened in shock. You mean you own that bar? So I misunderstood you? I smiled, completely calm. Yes. You were wrong. His eyes reddened and suddenly he stepped toward me, reaching out. Sarah, everything was my fault. Please, give me another chance. I immediately took 2 steps back. No can do. Maybe before I thought you were worthy of me, but now? You're not good enough. Eric froze. Without sparing him another glance, I stepped past him and got into Michael Green's car. From the corner of my eye, I saw a familiar emerald green figure standing beside Eric. Inside the car, Michael glanced at me in surprise. Wow. You actually got into my car today? Weren't you always taking cabs instead? I shook my head. Nothing much. Just didn't feel like dealing with idiots. Michael didn't ask further, simply driving ahead. After a while, I realized something was off. This wasn't the way to my place. I shot him a wary look. What are you doing? Since I rejected you, are you kidnapping me now? Let me tell you, I will never develop Stockholm Syndrome and fall for my captor. Michael turned his head slightly, eyes filled with exasperation. Do you really think I would? I instinctively shrank back. Damn it. Why did he have to look at me like that? It was making my entire body uncomfortable. When we got out of the car, I took in the surroundings. Desolate. Anyone who had committed crimes before would know this was the perfect place to dispose of a body. Michael, seeing how tense I was, sighed and explained. It's a factory. They're usually built in remote areas. We'll have to walk in from here. I relaxed slightly. A factory? What kind? He led the way. A coffee roasting plant. Your cafe still doesn't have a coffee supplier, right? I already checked, this place has the best variety. You can test and choose. I was genuinely surprised as I followed him inside. The mighty CEO Green personally accompanying me to pick coffee beans? How humbling. Michael, clearly resigned, explained patiently. Well, coffee is at least better than alcohol. It's much better than you getting drunk and dragging someone to the marriage bureau. Then he added with a smirk, if it happens again, it'll be bigamy. My face instantly turned red. I had no comeback. Though, in all fairness, I wouldn't just drag anyone to get married. At the very least, they'd have to be someone like Michael Green. And honestly, finding someone like him was rare. After checking out the factory, I was thoroughly impressed. CEO Green approved coffee beans were indeed top-notch. When we got back to the car, Michael handed me a stack of business cards. These are some of the best baristas and pastry chefs. Get in touch with them. If you find someone you like, I'll help recruit them for you. I stared at the cards, momentarily stunned. Michael Green was too good to me. He had thought of everything. It made me feel a little lost. I couldn't help but ask, Michael Green, why do you like me? Michael paused for a moment. Then his gaze softened. That night when Emily called me, I originally just wanted to see what became of the little girl who used to chase me around saying she wanted to marry me. But the moment I walked in, I saw you being bullied. I was about to step in. But then I saw you storm onto the table, pop open a bottle of wine, and dump it over someone's head. At this point, he chuckled. And I thought, damn, this girl is adorable. It'd be fun to marry her. Turns out I was absolutely right. His reason for liking me was so ridiculous, but it still made my face turn red all the way home. The moment the car stopped, I bolted out without looking back. That night, I received a message from Michael Green. Sara, you might think my feelings came too quickly, but I truly like you. Not just because you're cute and fun, but because you're decisive, straightforward, and take everything seriously. And somehow, without realizing it, I keep getting drawn to you, completely mesmerized. To be honest, facing such a sincere confession, it was impossible not to feel moved. But my past relationship had left me skeptical of everything and everyone. I was willing to give him a chance, but I needed time. On the day of my cafe's grand opening, the place was buzzing with excitement. Emily was there. Michael Green was there. And, of course, some people who shouldn't have been there also showed up. I was completely stunned when Eric Demir suddenly dropped to one knee, holding out a bouquet and a diamond ring. Sara, we've been together for 3 years and been through so much. There were misunderstandings, but I've only ever loved you. And I know you still have feelings for me too. I got the ring back. I don't want to brush off my past mistakes with just an apology. I want to spend a lifetime making it up to you. Sara, marry me. Eric's gaze burned with hope, staring at me like I was his last chance at salvation. I, on the other hand, felt nothing but disgust. Of all times, he chose the happiest day of my life to pull the most repulsive stunt. I eyed the familiar ring with utter disdain and said, Eric, how many times do I have to say it? We're over. Oh, and by the way, don't you think recycling a ring you already gave to someone else is just plain disgusting? Emily, who had already been annoyed at his presence, sneered. Wow, Eric. First, you give that ring to your little fling, and now you're reusing it to propose. What happened? Ran out of money? Or did you steal it back off her hand? I used to think you were just a scumbag, but turns out you're dumb too. You're like a genetic mutation walking around with a pig's brain on your neck, neither good-looking nor useful. So do us all a favor and stay the hell away from Sara. Eric's face darkened. Guilt flickered in his expression. A thought suddenly crossed my mind. Where exactly did this ring come from? And just as I suspected, Maura Taylor stepped out from the crowd, tears welling in her eyes. Eric, you said this ring looked perfect on me. When exactly did you take it back? Bingo. Eric shot to his feet. Maura, his eyes darted back and forth between us. But before he could say anything else, Michael Green stepped forward, grabbing my hand. Mr. Demers, he said, his voice calm but firm. Since you clearly can't make a decision, don't come disrupting Sara's life. Besides, you're already part of the past while Sara and I are legally married. If you keep this up, you're just interfering with our family. Eric's face drained of color. He looked completely shaken. No way. You're lying. Sara wouldn't just move on so quickly. She still loves me. Where did he get this unwavering confidence? Eric Demers had always been like this, either delusional or egotistical. Looking at his refusal to accept reality, I felt nothing but exhaustion. I rubbed my temples before pulling out my marriage certificate from my bag. Eric, he's telling the truth. I'm married. Stop coming around to bother me. Michael Green tightened his grip on my hand. When I turned to look at him, his eyes were shining with joy and satisfaction. Meanwhile, Eric's expression completely collapsed. His face went pale, all blood drained from it. Then, in a trembling voice, he muttered, Sara, I'm sorry. I won't bother you again. I calmly nodded, only wishing he'd leave faster so he wouldn't ruin my cafe's grand opening. His presence alone was bad luck. Just as Eric turned to leave, Maura grabbed his arm. Eric, it's okay if you take the ring back. I won't hold it against you. You still have me. Eric hesitated. Guilt flashed in his eyes. But after a deep sigh, he said, Maura, I'm sorry, but I only ever saw you as a sister. Maura froze. A second later, tears spilled down her cheeks. Sister? Would you sleep in the same bed as your sister? Then she laughed, a bitter, almost crazed laugh. Eric, I really misjudged you. I thought you had feelings for me. But now I see I was just your pastime. Turning abruptly, she slapped him across the face. Hard. Eric stood there, stunned, eyes filled with confusion and disbelief. But honestly, I doubted he'd ever understand why he got slapped in his entire life. And I had to admit, watching it felt incredibly satisfying. After that, Maura walked toward me. Both Emily and Michael Green stepped forward protectively, blocking me from her path. A warmth spread through my heart at their gesture. Maura, however, simply looked at me with admiration. Sara, I want to apologize for everything I did to you. I was blinded by a man who wasn't worth it. I schemed against you, targeted you. But I see now I was a fool. And honestly, I envy you. I sighed. The Maura Taylor standing in front of me now was completely different from before. It was like she'd been reborn. Most of what happened wasn't really her fault, it was Eric's. I didn't feel like holding a grudge anymore. So I simply smiled. I accept your apology. But you don't need to envy me. Just start living for yourself. Maura nodded with a smile and turned to leave. Eric, hearing the whispers of the crowd, glanced between Maura's retreating figure and me before finally slinking away, utterly defeated. And just like that, the grand opening of my cafe was a complete success. After the event ended, Michael Green quietly walked up to me. Lowering his voice, he asked, Sara, you carry your marriage certificate around with you? And just took it out in front of so many people. Does that mean my pursuit has finally succeeded? I thought for a moment. Let's say you're halfway there. His expression immediately shifted. What's that supposed to mean? I smirked. It means I can temporarily hold off on divorcing you. But if you want to be my real husband, you still have a long way to go. Rather than being discouraged, Michael Green actually looked relieved. Then he broke into the silliest, happiest smile. I frowned. You haven't even won yet. What's there to be so happy about? His smile softened, full of warmth. I'm happy because Sara is willing to give me a chance. To me, pursuing you isn't difficult at all. I'm willing to spend time to put in effort to give you everything I can. As long as you're willing to give me a chance, no matter how long this road is, I'll keep walking. Then he carefully took my hand. One day I'll reach the end of that road. And all you have to do is wait for me there. I stared at him, momentarily dazed. He was saying that I didn't have to do anything. I just had to wait. A love like that stirred something deep inside me. And maybe someday, I'd be willing to take a few steps forward on that road too. Just so I could meet him sooner. For now, there was no rush to define things. We'd take our time. And leave the rest to fate.